Hi, I'm Ethan. Welcome. We'll get started here in just a minute, but I just wanted to show you my face because mostly you'll be looking at my screen. I'm a real person. I'm not just a voice. Sometimes it's sort of like doing a webinar feels kind of like the Wizard of Oz, where you've got like this screen and you've got like, it's like, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So anyway, I'll be your man behind the curtain. Anyway, hi, welcome. I hope you're having an awesome day. I just had a little espresso, but it hasn't kicked in yet. So I'm still kind of like chill. It could be that I just kick it into like 16th gear halfway through this. But I'm glad you're here, and we'll get started shortly. Let me share my screen. So I'll go away for a little bit and then I will come back. Let's see. Here we go. Talking about how to write an amazing personal statement. So let's jump in. Here goes. So if you've never met me before, here are some quick facts on me. People like to know, who the heck is this person? So I spent some time at Northwestern studying performance studies, which is like theater, but also analyzing the ways that we perform and, in everyday life, performing race, performing culture, analyzing literature. I was basically a theater kid, but also a writing kid, a creative writing kid. I went to UC Irvine and got a master's in acting. So I spent a lot of time in rooms doing plays and rehearsing. Got a couple counseling certificates right after I graduated. Actually, I would say that's been in the last 10 years or so. But I got this job, basically helping students with their college essays right after college. So that was like 14 years ago. Yikes. And since then I've been teaching and I did a little curriculum writing. But mostly, I would say doing a lot of thinking about and writing about college essays. I like to collect certifications. So I got Myers-Briggs certified last year. So that's, personality typing. I'm an ENFJ, if you're curious. And I got licensed in hypnotherapy last year. So I wrote a book called College Essay Essentials, which is the #1 book on college essays right now, I'm excited to say. And in 2011, I became a college essay guy. I've got a bunch of free stuff on my website. If you just go to collegeessayguy.com/free, a free guide to the personal statement. And I've got a podcast where I interview amazing folks who are in this, college admissions world and who specialize in things other than the college essay. And again, that's free, #free, a bunch of blog posts. I've got about 100 blog posts on everything from 5 resources that'll save you $3,480 to busting some FAFSA myths, which is hard to say. I've got a scholarship for students who are low income or identify as low income. If you go to collegeessayguy.com/matchletters, where you can get paired with somebody who will give you 4 hours of free essay help and 2 hours of free list development help. And I'm a dad, and this is my daughter Zola, and she's amazing. This was me on Father's Day at our fancy breakfast at Denny's, so my wife could sleep. So the last thing you should know about me as we get started here is that I love buffets. And one of my favorite buffets, I don't know if y'all have ever been there, but is the Bellagio buffet. It's in Vegas and it's ridiculous expensive. It's like $60 or something, right? For just a meal. They've got ridiculous, crab legs and seafood. They've got desserts for days, tons of meat. I was vegetarian when I went there, so I didn't enjoy these meats. Did I mention the desserts? And then, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I'm about to throw at you 143 college essay resources. But what I want to say is, please do not try and consume and absorb all of these, because if you do, you might just end up with a little tummy ache. So I want you to treat this like a buffet. I'm going to give you a ton of resources. You can always come back for seconds later. Lola May once said, there are 3 things to remember when teaching. Know your stuff, know whom you're stuffing, and then stuff them elegantly. So that's what I'm going to try and do here. Don't end up like this dude, who came up when I just did like a Google search on Bellagio buffet. I was like, Bellagio buffet. And I saw this dude and I was like, that's how we don't want to end up. So if you do want seconds near the end, I'll spend about 5 minutes sharing with you 2 courses that I've got: a personal statement boot camp and how to write amazing supplemental essays. But feel free to graze today over the next 40 minutes or so. The way I'm structuring this is, these are the 5 questions that I get all the time when it comes to college essays. #1, how do I figure out what to write about? In other words, what's my content? What's my topic? 2, how do I structure my essay once I've figured out what I want to write about? 3, how do I outline my essay? 4, how do I revise it? And how do I bring it to life? AKA make it like not boring is the way students will often say it. So I'm actually going to cover all of these in the next 40 minutes. Number 1, how do you figure out what to write about? First question. I've got 2 exercises that I really love. And I'm not going to go through all of them right here, but I'll share with you a link so you can figure out, so you can do these exercises if you want. The first is called the essence objects exercise. And it basically involves imagining a box in which there's a set of what I call essence objects. So an essence object is something that you feel like represents deeper parts of who you are. So an essence object might, for example, be like, I've got this friendship bracelet on right now that my wife gave me, and that my wife gives me each year on my birthday. So she gives me a friendship bracelet, and I feel like for me that represents, she's my best friend. But it also represents remaking the connection, because what happens is every 8 or 9 months it wears off. And so she reties this friendship bracelet on to me. So that's one for me. Another one for me would be barbecue sauce, because I just really like barbecue sauce, but also because it reminds me of my grandmother and growing up in the South, some of that home cooking. Also, what I would say, my grandmother gave me a Bible when I was 7 years old. And that represents, I was raised as a missionary kid, lived in 20 different houses, went to 13 schools. And so that Bible represents more to me than just, Christianity or religion. It represents, my life as a missionary kid, as a pastor's son. So you get the idea. And if we had time today, if we weren't doing 143 resources, I would take you through an exercise that would take you about 10 to 15 minutes. And I would ask you some questions, and we would, generate your list of essence objects. If you're interested in doing this, if you just go to collegeessayguy.com, or if you could just Google essence objects exercise, and you don't even need to type in college essay guy. I'm that popular, y'all. Just Google essence objects exercise, and you can find, there's a little SoundCloud file where you can do this exercise. So that's one. And then the next one that I really love is called the values exercise, where you basically spend 2 minutes looking at a menu or a list of values, and you pick your top 10, and then you pick your top 5, and then your top 3, and then you pick your number 1. And the reason I love this exercise is that I really believe that at the end of a personal statement, we should really be able to identify specifically what are, say, 4 to 5 values that a student would really fight for. And I find that this comes from reading essays that I love and going, what is it about this? Why do I feel like I'm learning so much about a student, if I love the essay? And oftentimes it's because I can really get their values. Sometimes, especially on a first draft, a student is really just emphasizing one value, like hard work. And so it's less varied. The other reason I think the values exercise is important is that if you think about these essence objects, these, and the other, I'll just say something else about the essence objects exercise really quick, is that what you're doing with that exercise is you're taking these abstract thoughts and you're making them concrete, specific, and visual. And that's what we need. I think that images are the currency of storytelling. So by beginning to think imagistically, I don't know if that's a word, but in terms of images, we're starting to create the image making process, which will be the currency. In other words, how we'll tell our story. What the values can help us do is to understand, well, what are we communicating with those images? So those are 2 exercises I love. They take about 15 minutes total. My favorite prompt is describe the world you come from and tell us how your world has shaped your dreams and aspirations. I believe that if you really answer this prompt well, and by the way, this is a supplemental essay for MIT and the UCs, the University of California schools used to use it. But I believe if you really answer this question well, to me, this is a money prompt. And it's even better than the topic of your choice that Common App often gives. When preparing, to find a topic, when I meet one-on-one with students, I'll give them this pre-work. I'll say, do the essence objects and the values exercise. And then I've got a bunch more. Not a bunch more, 3 more. 21 details exercise, the everything I want colleges to know about me exercise, and I'll use something called use science or do what you are. Now you can Google all these. The 21 details exercise basically involves coming up with 21 random facts about yourself. And the everything I want colleges to know about me exercise is just literally on a piece of paper, just make a list of everything you want colleges to know. Use science or do what you are. Those are not part of me. Those are just different services online that allow students to explore interests and aptitudes, and in some cases find careers that match up with them. So Do What You Are is related to Myers-Briggs, and you can get the book on Amazon for like $1, and I really recommend it. It's really awesome. So anyway, I have students do all of this stuff, and then we kind of go hunting. We go searching for what might the themes be that are emerging here. Another question I love is really asking, is this my deepest story? And so that's something to think about as you're exploring, trying to figure out your topic. If you've got something you feel like it's kind of surface level, it may not be your deepest story. Now, you might have a topic picked out that you feel like is just like, I ask you that question, and this will happen sometimes. I'll ask a student, is this your deepest story? And they'll be like, yeah, this is the one I'm telling. Do you have to find your deepest story, this kind of, mythic, prophetic thing? Like, what is the deepest story? What does that mean? Not necessarily. You could find a topic that's good and you could improve upon it. But I like this question as a litmus test for, have I found my topic yet? Once, and I'll acknowledge that you won't have found your topic with just me sharing those resources. But again, buffet style, y'all. Once you've found your topic, the question becomes, how do I structure my essay? Well, again, my favorite prompt, describe the world you come from and tell us how your world has shaped your dreams and aspirations. So when I was working with students on finding, basically handling this prompt in 2000, from basically 2003 to 2010 or so, I found that when it came to students' world, they had, there were basically two, before I go to the next slide, there were basically two types of students. There were students who'd been through challenges and students who said they hadn't really been through challenges. And I let students define what that means. So actually, I'll just ask you on this call right now, do you feel like you've been through challenges or not? And second question, dreams and aspirations. Do you know what you want to be or do? What do you want to be when you grow up? Or do you feel like you're still figuring it out? Now, it's okay. You don't have to have experienced challenges to write a great essay. You don't have to know what you want to study to write a great essay. But I find that these break into 4 types of essays. So I call these the 4 types of essays. And the first category, and I've arbitrarily labeled them A, B, C, and D. We've got students who have faced challenges and know what they want to study. B, students who have not faced challenges, but do know what they want to study. C, yes, challenges, but don't know. And D, no challenges and don't know. And I want to make an important point that just because you've been through challenges, or just because you know what you want to study, you do not have to write about them in your main personal statement. And by your main personal statement, I'm talking about the long one, the one that you'll write that's anywhere from 500 to 650 words that maybe goes for the Common App and goes to most of the schools you'll be applying to. So these are types of essays. These are different approaches. And I'm going to get into how to approach them in just a second. But I want you to consider that you could move into any one of these categories at any point. And there may be a really good reason for not writing about your major. It could be that there's a supplemental essay, which is to say, when you apply to college, you'll be writing a main essay that will go for most of, say, you're applying to private schools or highly selective schools. And then oftentimes a school will ask you for supplemental essays. Stanford asked for 3 short 250-word essays and some short answers. Okay. And it could be that one of those, and Stanford doesn't do this, but one of those asks you, why do you want to study your major? So then you wouldn't want to put that in your main essay because then it would be redundant, right? Then what would I write for that other one? So again, these are just types of approaches for that main essay. But here are 2 structures that work for pretty much any essay. I'll try not to keep saying the word essay again and again. So narrative structure and montage structure. And in my mind, these are the only 2, and I'll tell you why. Narrative structure is what we're familiar with from movies. Causal connections, cause and effect. A led to B, led to C. Montage structure kind of jumps around in space and time. This relates to that, and it's all connected by a common theme. And I'll explain more. I'll give you some examples in just a second. So a narrative structure might sound like this, and you can Google this. And it's a with debate essay. If you just Google with debate essay, college essay guy, you'll see this whole essay. It begins with the status quo. The student says, I was really shy. We learn about her that she needed to get over this. Why? Because her parents, she translated for them. She tried lots of things and she failed doing them. So in this section of the essay, she raises the stakes, which lets us know why being shy was such a big deal, why she wanted to get over it or needed to. The inciting incident, which is the moment that really launches the story, was her joining debate. The denouement, what happens next. By high school, she joins the school debate team, starts socializing, was elected to head several clubs, develops these cool skills and qualities. And ultimately, after 4 years of debate, she's the kid at the whiteboard, the kid leading discussions and standing up for her beliefs. So as you can see, there's like a cause and effect. A, I was really shy. B, I joined debate. C, I came out of it. I learned some skills and found my future career. Now, that's different from this. In this essay, this is from a student that I worked with a few years ago. He basically had all these qualities he wanted to show. Like he was really curious. So he shows that in the first paragraph. The next paragraph, he talks about working with his hands. The next paragraph, he's always been obsessed with details. I'm a math geek, he says. I love sharing my knowledge with others. Now, these are all random things. What do these all have to do with each other? Well, he reveals at the end, all these qualities will serve me well in my career as not an engineer, but an endodontist, a dentist. So it kind of seems like we're on this path to becoming an engineer, but he's like, nope. And he goes this other direction. And it's like, oh, okay. So the theme that connects all of these details is this, all of these things connect because they will help me be a great dentist. So that's the connective thing that connects all the moments. Okay. So that's what I mean by thematic connections. Whereas the other one is like A led to B led to C. That's the narrative. In montage, it's not like curiosity led me to working with my hands, which led me to my obsession with details. So that's how they're different. Now, I think a really great essay should either go deep, discussing one moment or a series of experiences that fundamentally changed your life, or go wide, discussing lots of different elements of your life with lots of variety. The narrative structure can help you go deep. The montage structure helps you go wide. Now, there's no better or worse, okay? There's no like right or wrong way. It just kind of depends on if you have a challenge or a series of challenges that you want to discuss or not. And if you do, I would suggest the narrative structure. And if you don't, I'd suggest the montage. How do I outline my essay? Well, I'm calling on Chunk from Goonies. Remember him? Decide on the big chunks of the essay. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, what I'm talking about is Aristotle's basic idea that we need a beginning, middle, and end. And if you can take your complex idea and just simplify it to what was the beginning, what happened in the middle, and then where did I end up? That's a great way to simplify things. Now, that sounds really basic. What do I mean by that? Well, this with debate essay, when you read it, you'll seem like, wow, this is really complex. And there are a lot of, different elements. But when you break it down to its simplest form, it's a story about a girl who was shy, who joined debate and became less shy. Oh, and by the way, along the way, decided that she wanted to, become a diplomat. And in the other example that I just gave, that, montage example, the chunks are basically the qualities that he wanted to show. So curiosity, or being good with his hands, or being really meticulous, helping others. All of these led him to become a dentist. Okay. So that's what I mean by chunks. It's like, well, how do you want to theme each paragraph? So part two, it starts to get a little more complicated. So I want to go and give you a little glimpse into how to write each of these types. And you'll get some information here, and then I'll tell you where you can get even more. So here's how to outline any essay in basically 6 minutes. So the challenge for the type A essay is, how do you talk about your challenges in a way that clearly connects to your future career? Again, assuming that you want to write about both. Now, I think the answer here is in your values. So check this out. I want to say that again. Your challenges, which is to say your past, and your career, which is to say your future, your imagined future, are intimately tied through the values that you've developed. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I'm college essay guy, and the challenges that I faced in my life were my parents' divorce. I broke my kneecap in 10th grade, and what else? Bullying. I was bullied some when I was a kid. So what do these things have to do with college essay guy? Well, when my parents got divorced, some of the effects of that was, we didn't really talk about it a lot. My parents were, kind of kept it quiet because they wanted to kind of protect us, which I really appreciated in a way. But another way, I would have liked some more conversation, some more transparency. And I think I kind of emotionally detached during that time, if I'm being real with y'all. But during that time, I developed this need, I think, desire for more connection, more intimacy, more transparency, more honesty. And what did I do about it? I joined theater. And through theater, I really got a lot of connection. I mean, I basically developed a second family, a community. And through that, now you kind of see where this is going, right? Through this connection in theater, I developed strong, I think, communication skills. I developed an ability to connect with people on a deeper level. You see where I'm going with this? My career now as college essay guy has benefited in a circuitous way, roundabout way from the challenge, because now I'm really good at connecting with people. I'd say that's one of my superpowers, connecting with students fast. I also wrote a lot during this time to sort of process what I was going through. And so, certainly writing was something that I use now as college essay guy. Honesty and transparency, something that I began to appreciate even more and something that served me well in my career. Now, the truth is, and here's the funny part about this method, is that those qualities that I'm mentioning to you, communication skills, also adaptability was another one that also serves me as a college essay guy, but communication and transparency and honesty and connection. I mean, these are values and skills that are going to serve me really in any career. If I decided to be a doctor tomorrow, I could make an argument for how those skills would serve me in that career. So the point here, and this is why I'm harping on values so much, is that they're so elastic. By elastic, I mean they're stretchy enough to connect to a lot of things. So that's why I really encourage students and you to think about, from right off the bat, like, what are your core values and how did you develop them? Because I think that your personal statement can be a record of how you developed your values. And even if you do say or don't say at the end of your essay what career those will lead to, you can still end with the values. Okay. For more on this and the exercise that I just kind of walked through, it's called the feelings and needs exercise. If you just Google that, you'll kind of see how that process works. How do you demonstrate, if you know what you want to study, but you haven't been through challenges, great skills and qualities? Well, one way to do this is to reverse engineer your essay by beginning with the end. So what do I mean by this? Well, for that student that I mentioned who wanted to be a dentist, I just had him he came into my office and he was like, hey, I was like, hey, what's going on? What do you want to, so we started talking, what do you want to write about? And he's like, I don't know. I was like, have you been through challenges? And he's like, no. I was like, okay, have you, you know what you want to study? And he's like, yeah, I want to be an endodontist. And I was like, endo what? And he's like, oh, it's like dentist. I was like, okay, cool. And I just wrote on the board, all right, what are some great qualities of an endodontist? Let's brainstorm. And so he listed some qualities of like, well, you got to be really detail focused and you got to be curious. You got to be, want to help others. I was like, okay, cool. Do you have these qualities? And he's like, yeah, I guess I do. And I was like, okay, show me how. So basically he gave me an example of each of these qualities, how he became, how he helps others. And I was like, how do you help others? He's like, well, I do math tutoring, but like, I don't know how that connects to, I was like, don't worry about it. Let's just write it down. So he came up with all these examples and these examples became his paragraphs and he ended up putting them in chronological order, which helped with the transitions. And by the end, we had some really cool qualities that ultimately connected and said, here's why I'm going to make a great dentist. So if you Google college essay guy example B, you'll see how that essay turned out. So that's one way of writing that essay, if that's something that you're interested in. In fact, I had a dad emailed me, a student. He's like, hey, I just used the montage essay structure. And I like figured out what I want to do with my life. And I'm like, that's awesome. So there are all sorts of, weird and interesting ways that this exercise has helped people. onetonline.org is a hashtag goldmine if you're trying to use this exercise. So if you go there, you'll find this occupation quick search up here in the top right corner. Type in your occupation and hit enter. And you'll find a list of skills that are useful or will be useful in your career. So if you're struggling, if you're trying to do this method and you're like, oh, I can't think of anything, just type in onetonline.org and it'll help you out for sure. All right. Type C. If you've got a challenge and you've written about it, the question is, well, how do I end my essay? Well, I think, again, it's those values. Colleges want to know, are you going to be contributing something valuable on campus and beyond? If so, what are those things? And I think the values are going to be really important to for that. They should be either explicitly stated or, clearly implied. A simple structure that works is don't spend 80% of your essay talking about the challenge. Spend maybe a quarter of the essay, a third, at most half, but definitely by the midpoint, we need a turn to see what you did about it to overcome that challenge and what you learned. And if you Google significant challenges, college essay guide video, you'll see a little 18-minute video where I break down a particular essay that uses that structure. Buffet style, y'all. So if you haven't been through challenges and don't know what you want to study, what do? I'm sorry, I can't help you. No, I'm kidding. Here are three options. one thing is you can get this book, Do What You Are. That costs like $1. You can get it used. I don't get paid for saying that. And how much would I get paid? Like 10 cents. And you can search whatever. So you basically go through and you do a personality assessment and you find out what your personality type is. And then you read about that personality on ONET online, or sorry, in the book. And then you type in that, whatever that, career is. So you basically pick a career and go, okay, let me just put this, slot this in for a second. So let's say, for example, I had to pick a different career. Now, I'm really into, let's say, let me pick something that I like, but I don't talk about often. You know what? Advertising is kind of fun for me. So if I were to pick advertising, I'd be curious, like, what is it about advertising that I like? So I would type in advertising or to own it online and see what are those skills and qualities. And I write those down. Then you can kind of write what I call the type B outline, which is to say, okay, well, what skills and, values do I want to show that would lead me to want to be in advertising? But then here's the deal. You don't have to actually end and say, therefore, I want to go into advertising. The purpose of this exercise is just to generate those skills and qualities so that you can show, hey, I've got some awesome stuff that I've developed in my life. You can potentially, list that as a career or say, maybe I'm interested in doing this. And you can always change. They're not going to hold you to it. So that's one option. Find a placeholder using Do What You Are, this really cool book. And that's, sort of like a quick career exploration tool. Another option is just to pick something that you really love and use that as a framing device. And by framing device, I mean, what is the thing that holds everything together? So I had a student that I worked with who loved scrapbooking, and she had all these amazing things that she wanted to talk about, but didn't know how they connected. And so she ended up doing the scrapbook of her life essay, where every single detail, every single image was revealing something different about her. Another student was obsessed with applied math, and he showed me in his essay how he saw the world through applied math, and it lit up all these different insights and values of his experience in his world. And then another student, travel and languages were his thing. So those were the common threads that connected all the different parts of him in his essay. So it could be anything that you really love. I had a student a few years back who loved cupcakes, and so every little detail in her essay somehow related back to cupcakes. So it could almost literally be anything that you know really well. And again, the point here is that the scrapbook is not the topic. Applied math is not the topic. You're the topic. And these framing devices, or focusing lenses, as I call them, are the ways of getting into different parts of you. The third option, if you're really stuck and you're like 2 days before the deadline, is to just make a big list of all the qualities you want to show, use that values exercise, and then give a specific example of each one, and then just name the values that you feel like are important to you based on those. Okay. So how do you revise your essay once you've written a draft? Maybe you're watching this and you're at that point. And this came from an exercise where I just was stuck trying to help a student, over email, where she was like, I don't know, my essay doesn't flow. And so for you, if you're watching this and you feel like your essay is not flowing, do this. Highlight the first sentence of each paragraph. So in this endodontics essay, which you haven't read yet maybe, but you can Google it. As a kid, I was always curious, and it didn't stop in second grade. A few years later, I designed my first pair of shoes, working for hours to perfect each detail, including whether the laces should be mineral white or diamond white. In high school, I moved on to more advanced projects, teaching myself how to take apart, repair, and customize cell phones. Next paragraph. And once I got my driver's license, I started working on cars. You see how these connect, y'all? It's really cool. The student didn't do this on purpose. He just wrote a really great essay, and it was well structured and well thought out. And when I went back and looked at it like 2 years later, I was like, oh my gosh. It's like, and I started to look at other essays that were well structured, and I saw that this happened. So now I teach it as a way of, I call it, finding the skeleton of the essay. So the skeleton is these first sentences. The meat is, what comes after them in the paragraphs. So how do you revise it? You go through, highlight the first lines in bold. See if they flow together. If they don't flow together, like sentence 1 and sentence 2, like paragraph 1 and paragraph 2, maybe flow together, but maybe 2 and 3 don't. Well, there's a problem there. There's a connective, thread or, some connective tissue that's missing. So resolve that. Resolve that by rewriting the sentence in bold first. Make sure they connect. Okay. Now, why these first sentences? Because those are the ones that kind of it's making a series of first impressions, these first sentences on these paragraphs. Right? So rewrite those. And then once you've rewritten those and they flow together, then rewrite the rest of your body paragraphs. And then I say, go for a walk and come back and reread it and see if it still makes sense. So that's the quick version of how to revise your essay. And if you Google how to revise your essay in 5 steps, there's an exercise that explains what I just shared with you, and you can find that essay. Okay. Home stretch, y'all. Take a breath. So how do I bring my essay to life? how do I make it? This is what students will say. How do I make it like not boring? So here are 3 tips. And I call this mediocre advice because it's mediocre advice that I've received or that I've seen out there made better. One is choose a great opening. People say this all the time. You've got to have a great opening. Well, what does that mean? How do I do it? I say start with a problem that must be solved, or a question, or a challenge. Some examples. This is the opening of a real essay that you can Google as well. Here's a secret no one in my family knows. I shot my brother when I was 6. Luckily, it was a BB gun. But to this day, my older brother Jonathan doesn't know who shot him. And I've finally promised myself to confess this 11-year-old secret to him after I write this essay. Okay, all sorts of questions pop up, right? Why did he shoot him? Did he die? Was he angry? And what's going to happen when he tells him? Or, are we even going to find out? All sorts of questions pop up for me when I read that one. Show, don't tell is another piece of advice that, is given, I think, all the time. And I think for a college essay, it's a good beginning. Like, you do want to show, you do want to use images, but I don't think that you don't want to tell, because I think sometimes you do want to tell. You want to help connect the dots. So I think it's important to show first and then tell, and particularly in that order, because I think showing first allows the reader to engage with the story, to begin thinking about where is she leading us here? What's going on in this story? And then when you tell us in a way, hopefully, that we haven't been able to predict, we start to see your particular insight, the way you think. Here's an example. This is a nice show. Many nights you'll find me in the garage replacing a car's standard chrome trim with an elegant piano black finish, or changing the threads on the stitching of the seats to add a personal touch. Now, why is this a nice show? I call this a painting. It's a beautiful painting that gives me some core values of the student. So what do I learn? Read it again. Many nights you'll find me in the garage. So he's replacing standard chrome trim with an elegant piano black finish. So he's working with his hands, changing the threads on the stitching of the seats to add a personal touch. There's some attention to aesthetics, to details, to design. So I'm getting working with hands, I'm getting creativity, I'm getting attention to detail. So at least 3 values just from this one example. That's why it's so great, guys, to use images, because we start to, our minds start to go crazy, even on a subconscious level, trying to figure out what's going on. Why is the person showing us this? Notice what happens with the tell at the end. So he continues this and he says, as I believe a few small changes can transform a generic product into a personalized work of art. Wow. Okay, cool. So there's a little insight. So that's not something that I expected the author to say. Kind of neat. So the show first. Within 8.4 miles. The first one is inside choice is West. Okay, Google, stop. That was my okay Google coming on for no reason in particular. Technology. So show first. Let me see that you are, someone who's capable of communicating in terms of images, and then tell. Show me that you've got insight, that you're capable of being a critical thinker. I think it's really important to be both. The show demonstrates you're a talented writer. The tell demonstrates you're a critical thinker. Be both. I'm gonna get that tattoo. Not actually. Finally, write what you know. I've gotten this piece of advice a bunch and I've never known what to do with it. It always sends me into this existential tailspin. So what do I actually know? I say use geeky language. And by geeky language, I mean, when you've got something that you know, I think it's nice to use a little bit of language that lets the reader know that you know what you're talking about. I'll give you an example. I'm the math geek who marvels at the fundamental theorems of calculus, or who sees beauty in A equals whatever that says. And so there's the geeky language, right? Okay, so he knows some stuff about math and he sees some beauty in it. But then, so that's the show. Tell me, so what? Again, it's in the details. One bracket off or one digit missing and the whole equation collapses. Oh, cool. So what? And details are more than details. They can mean the difference between negative and positive infinity, an impossible range of solutions. Nice. Okay, now I get a sense of that he's not just able to come up with cool examples that show me core values, but he's able to give me insight into how he thinks. If you're looking for more brainstorming ideas, particularly, you're trying to find your topic, your deepest story, if you just actually Google interesting questions, this pops up. But 100 brave and interesting questions, there's a list of 100 questions. No joke. And they're so great. I mean, these are great, like just hanging out with friends questions. So you can check those out. And guess what? That's 140 resources. I've got a few more. If you'd like more comprehensive help besides that, I've got two courses that I've created. One is this, it's called the Personal Statement Bootcamp, and the other is called How to Write Amazing Supplemental Essays. And if you work through these, I call this How to Draft Your College Application in 2 weeks. So no matter where you're at in the process, here's how this could go. So week 1 on the Personal Statement Bootcamp, day 1, and these are recorded. These are all recordings, so you can just watch these, and they're kind of like Netflix style. Watch them anytime, anywhere. If we work on finding your essay topic on the first course, and it's basically an hour session and then half an hour of Q&A. It's live Q&A. It's recorded. Day 2, I walk you through step by step how to write each of the 4 essay types that I kind of touched on earlier. Then in day 3, I talk about what are the 4 qualities of a great essay. This is the great college essay test. And so if you've already written an essay, you can go through and actually just fast forward to this one. I don't recommend it because I think it's really good to be thinking about your topic in a deeper way. And that's what the first session's for. Then in days 4 and 5, I basically workshop live essays and I revise them so you can kind of see how to revise. And as I'm doing it, I teach principles that apply just basically to everyone. And I talk about how some of the principles that I've taught apply. I talk about how to bring it to life with details and color. And then I've got some advanced screenwriting secrets. On the course, this is the Personal Statement Bootcamp course. We talk about everything from are any topics off limits? How much sharing is TMI? How do I brag without seeming like I'm bragging? And then I do this, step-by-step guide. I also talk about, how do you end the essay? How do I make it deep, right? How do I make sure that it's got, levels and complexity? Should I even share my essay with people? If so, how many people? When should I share it? It's 16 video lessons. It's 12 hours of content, a 32-page workbook, 16 sample essays. And again, you can watch it anytime. You can watch it anywhere. That's week 1. Week 2, I've got the second course called How to Write Amazing Supplemental Essays, where basically the challenge is this. So you've got all of this amazing stuff, all these qualities and moments and challenges. How do you fit that into the application pieces? Because you've got your main personal statement, which is what we've been talking about for the last half hour or so. And that's the thing in the middle. But you've got these other pieces, right? You also have to do an activities list. You've also got to do supplemental essays. There's an additional information section, and maybe you might even do a video. So how do you fit yourself, your complexity, into all these boxes? So on day 1 of this course, we do what's called a preliminary sort. And I take you through a sample application, and I show you how doing a really good job on those brainstorming activities can help make for a better application. I show you how to figure out how your essay topics can overlap so you can save yourself a lot of time and even write a better essay, what I call a super essay. And I'll give you an example of a super essay and show you how you can write it. And then I have a little Q&A. So each one of these is an hour course and then a half-hour Q&A. And then on day 2, we get into the activities list. This is basically your resume or brag sheet, the additional info. So I give, tips for each of those activities that you may not have thought to include, but that definitely count. How to up-level your activities list. There's a big list of epic, I call it the CEG, epic activities list verbs list. I know that's redundant, but it's the activities list verbs list. That actually makes sense if you slow it down. And then I get into that additional info section. So you've got 13 potential things that you could write there, maybe more, but I talk about 13 different things you could put there. You don't have to write anything there, but here are some things that might go there because that sometimes baffles students. And then you've got this why us essay, which is sometimes as important as your main essay. So I've spent 40 minutes or 35 minutes talking about your main personal statement, but this why us essay, which is basically the school asking, why do you want to attend our school, is sometimes more important to them because they're looking to see, will you matriculate? Will you enroll in the school? And on the course, I talk about why that's such a big deal to them. And then I review 3 great why us essays. And then, let's see, on day 3 of the extracurricular we talk about the extracurricular essay. So in this session, we'll cover the difference between a regular and super extracurricular essay, what makes the big difference, 4 qualities of a just okay one, and then what makes it amazing, mistakes that students often make when they're writing this one, and then a 3-step process that helps you avoid those, including how do you write a narrative extracurricular essay? And I've got an exercise for that. How do you write a montage version? I've got a different exercise for that. And it's a little bit different, I think, from your main essay. And then I talk about how you can apply this approach to basically almost any supplemental essay. Day 4, we'll get into some specific essays. For example, the Stanford essays, not why Stanford, but Stanford essays. I also talk about how to write that, all those the U Chicago essay. And these essays, each of these is going to double and triple and relate to others. Let's see. On day 5, we'll talk about the short extracurricular essay and the short answers. By this point in the course, we'll have covered about 80% of the essays you'll need to write, maybe more, because that extracurricular essay is going to apply to so many different schools. So I talk about the short answers that will apply, especially to those highly selective schools, or USC, all the Ivies oftentimes have these short answers. And then we get into video. So I think video is becoming a much more used forum and way to express yourself. So I'll give you some tips on how to really stand out and how to make your video look professional, even if, on a low budget, on no budget, actually. Finally, on day 6, we'll do this exercise called the value scan, and we'll talk about how to make sure your application is really doing its job, which is to say, showing you off in the most awesome way possible. And finally, it will look like this. Your application will look all magical. And, you'll have everything, all these neat little colorful boxes. Now, to be sure, there are all these other elements that go into your application, your GPA, your test scores, your recommendation letters, interview. But we're going to be focusing on the written parts and the potential video. And so that's everything that you see on the screen right now. So that's a busy 2 weeks. I know you're probably wondering, how much does this all cost? Well, the regular rate for counselors is $497 for each of these. The student rate's $297. But I'm going to do a little for the next 24 hours. The courses are $197 each. And if you use coupon code, let's do this, you can get the courses. So if you're interested, a little thing will pop up here in the margin so you can check it out. And if you're, want to just type it in, you can type in tinyurl.com/CEG courses. So for the next day, basically 24 hours, I'll knock some bucks off the courses, and let's get a little crazy. So actually, for the next 60 minutes, if you do it, this is one of those like act now moments. You can actually get both courses for $197 if you use the coupon code I am decisive. And so when you check out with the coupon, you'll automatically get the second course for free. So if you sign up at the link that's popped up, the little offer is popped up in your margin on your browser, or you can use this link, tinyurl.com/CEG courses. So for the next day, $197 each, or for the next hour, $197 for both. And there are the coupon codes. So I'll pause on that for a second so if folks are interested, and we'll segue now to Q&A. So just to clarify for folks, these are courses that are on demand, which means you can download them and watch them basically at any point. You could watch them tonight. You could binge watch them. You don't have to take 2 weeks. You could do it all in one day. If you were interested in watching 24 hours straight of college essay stuff, you could totally do that. But I recommend doing them over the course of at least a week because it takes some time to write and process. And I give you homework on each of these. So I'd say stretch it out over a couple weeks. That's my advice. So some questions are coming in. How long are the courses available for viewing after their purchase? Great question, Rachel. So they're viewable for a year, basically, after you get it. How do you have time to write essays while having tough course load at school? Well, Anjali, if you can spend, let's say half an hour a day, that's enough to get it done in a few weeks, I'd say. It takes time. But so one of the things I'll say is definitely spread this out. Don't think that you're going to get this done in 2 days, because it does take time. And so that's a tough question. I mean, a lot of students work on the weekends to get this done. So let's see. Will these courses actually help me? Yes, Emma, these courses will actually help you. If your essay is type B, Jaden, I'd recommend, so Jaden's asking, which approach should you take? The montage approach. That's what I would say. Let's see. Other questions. Where can I get the info for this course? At the link on the screen. What else? Let's see. Let me see if there are other questions popping up. On average, how many different essays do you write per application? Great question. So for this, you'll probably write, let's say, well, it depends on your schools. So if you're writing for Duke, you're writing your main essay, which is the one we've been talking about, plus 2 supplemental essays. If you're applying to Michigan, you've got 2. If you're applying to USC, you've got right now, I think 2. If you're applying to University of California schools like UCLA and Berkeley, those don't require a main essay like a 650 word. Those require 4 350 word essays. So if you're curious about all these, just look them up on just Google the name of the school and ask, application essays. Each school have different requirements. A lot of the private schools will be on the Common App, commonapp.org. Let's see. Melody asks, for the essays you outlined, the montage essay, how do they answer the Common App personal essay prompts? So Melody, fortunately, topic of your choice is available to you. So topic of your choice means write about whatever you want. So that's the one I'd recommend. Also, the background, the prompt 1, which is tell us about a background or story that you feel like your application would be incomplete without, it answers that as well. So if you're interested in sample essays, like the ones that I went over, you can just Google. So you can Google with debate essay or endodontics essay, and you'll see those in full. So let's see. If you're the type A where you have challenges and know what you're going to do for a career, wouldn't it be bad to write about your future career and not your challenges? If you're the type A where you have challenges and know what you want to do, would it be bad to write about your future career and not your challenges? No, not at all, Emily. You totally don't have to write about your challenge or you don't have to write about either one. So it's not bad. There's no, must do. If you do write about your future career and not your challenges, I would encourage you to work into the essay values and qualities that will show that you are going to be able to be successful in that career. And that's what I meant by the type B essay. Can an essay still be effective with a narrative beginning that then branches off to have a wider view? Talking about values. Yep, for sure. Yes, Diane. Rachel asked, do you provide personal coaching to someone who's taken the course after they write their essay? There's a link on my website where you can find out about that. So if you just go to one-on-one, there's a little submission form. It says, initial one-on-one conference chat. So you just fill that out and we'll get back to you. What types of essays are overused? I think what I'm guessing that you're asking is what type of topics are cliche. So some of the cliche topics are sports essays, essays about musical instruments, essays on mission trips. Those tend to be more cliche topics. And in the supplemental essays course, I talk to you about how to make sure that you stand out if that's one of your topics. I don't encourage students to write about those topics. I don't say that you have to not write about them. I would just say that the level of difficulty goes up. Why? Because if you're writing about, baseball, just think how many other students are writing about baseball. And so I've got a little technique that I talk about there about how to basically make sure that your baseball essay doesn't sound like everybody else's baseball essay. Would writing about a learning disability have a negative impact on my application? So the answer to that is, like I mentioned with the type C essay, make sure that you're focusing on, the challenge, but only in the first part of the essay. We really want to know, what did you do about it? And, who did you become after that? So what did you learn through the experience? We'll take a few more questions, and then I think I've got a sample essay that we're going to look at. So let's see. But it wouldn't necessarily look bad, Anna. Speaking generally about a learning disability, if by the end of it we felt like, okay, this person is still dealing with it and hasn't really processed it, and I think really it's important to show how have you processed it, what have you learned through it, and if it's truly shaped you, then it could be really worth writing about. So it's not about the what necessarily, it's about the how. When you mentioned about writing about shyness and joining debate, wouldn't that sound really generic to colleges? Intia, I'd encourage you. So yes, this is what I mean by the what, that could sound really general, right? But it's the how. And if you look specifically at that essay, and that's an essay that we look at really specifically on the course. So, and I just didn't have way that she does it. And if you're interested again in reading that, you can just Google it and you can read it for free. With debate essay. What schools did the student that wrote the endodontist essay get into? He ended up at USC. how do I make the middle of the essay more interesting? Mickey, it's hard for me to answer that generally. I'd have to know what the story is and what the context is. So I wouldn't be able to say, generally speaking. Arpita, you're wondering what type B means? Go back to where I talk about type B earlier when you get the recording. Rowan asks, my gut feeling is that using your choice prompt is a cop-out. Do colleges really not mind? Rowan, colleges really don't mind. Who should I let edit my essay? Grace, I'd pick one person who you really trust. If you get 2, 3, 4, or 16 people, it's like too many cooks in the kitchen and it starts getting confusing. Editing, though, it depends on what you mean by edit, because if you're talking about someone to, look for grammar, that's one thing. If you're talking about somebody to help you come up with ideas, that might be another thing. So it could be that you've got maybe 2 different people. So I said 1, but maybe it's 2, right? Maybe your best friend is the person you want to discuss topics with, or maybe your counselor, but maybe the person who edits it isn't your best friend. Maybe that's someone else. So I'd say, pick 1, maybe 2 people and kind of keep it small. Okay, let me pause for a second because I want to look at a sample essay here, and I will switch over my screen. Thanks for your patience. Here's the other thing I'll say. Let me just show this on my screen. Just switch over my screen. It's loading, so thanks for your patience. Okay. So while it's loading, I'll just answer a couple more questions. So, do the techniques taught in this course apply to all the essays or mainly to personal statements only? By all essays, no, not all essays. So if you're writing a research paper for history class, the techniques here probably won't necessarily apply. So not all essays ever. What do you think with a fiction scenario in college essays that moves into personal essays? Rose, I'm not sure what you mean. Maybe you could give me a little bit of a clarification on what that question is. How should you decide what Common App essay to write? Jaden, do you mean which essay, like which topic you want to write on, or which prompt? If you're trying to pick a prompt, just pick prompt 7, topic of your choice. Okay, so let me switch over this screen for a second, and I want to show you this real quick. Here's a cool thing, so check this out. Turn screen share off. Yeah, let me just switch. So, okay. Thanks for your patience. All right. So, if you look at the link the bar there, if you see this thing, it says Personal Statement Bootcamp. So when you click on the link, you'll come to this. If you're in the boat where you're listening to me and you're being like, man, I can't afford $200. That's crazy. Check this out. Scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. So here's the regular rates, counselor rate, student rate. Check this out. When is it? Where is it? It's everywhere. It's whenever. Take the video course. If you're hard up for cash and you're like, I'd really like to do this, Ethan. This sounds really super cool, but I ain't got the money. Click here, video course, pay what you can. You put your name, you put your last name, you put your email address. You say, are you a counselor or a student? Because that tells me which one you need. Say you're a student. I can afford to pay, look, 97, 47, 27, other. Click one of these, boom, or other amount. How'd you hear about the course? Anything else you want to add? I'll get back to you, and you've got it. So this is called the pay what you can option. And, be real here. So in other words, if you really can't afford it, use this. If you can't afford it, maybe pay the suggested cost. But one of my core values, just so y'all know, is access and affordability. So I really want to make sure that anybody who wants to take this course can take it. So if you're interested, and this will apply to both courses. Okay. So for the amazing supplemental essays course that I talked about, so that's this one. Bring it, how to write amazing supplemental essays. So you scroll down, same deal. 30 something sample essays. There's my crazy face. Student, pay what you can, and counselor, pay what you can. So same deal. You just click it, put your name, email, tell me what you can pay. How'd you hear about the course? Anything else? Thanks, Ethan. That was awesome. Boom, hit submit. We'll get back to you, and you can take the course. Cool, huh? So there's no excuse. Okay. Okay. So let's look at the sample essay. So let me switch over my screen. I think this should work. Let me see if this works. Did it? Let's see. Okay. Nope, not yet. Here. An essay. Okay. Bring out the saddle, the waitress said. We have the big 8-0 here. Now, I haven't read this essay, so we're reading it together for the first time. And thanks, Maddie, for sending your essay in. In minutes, the entire restaurant will be serenading him to happy birthday as he sits upon the plastic saddle. As the tradition goes, I expect my grandfather to dive into his loaded baked potato for refuge. Instead, he holds off the waitress. Can you give us a second? My family and I try to reason with him, thinking he's just chickening out. But then he raises his Sam Adams and begins a toast. 4 years ago, Sandy almost got me. I just wanted to acknowledge that I'd be in the Bay, stubborn as ever, if it wasn't for an important phone call from an important person. Mad, and we know Mad is the author here, your little voice of reason convinced me to leave the shore, so thank you. My jaw almost dropped. My whole family had bug eyes. My Papa Dave is a man of few words, and we'd never discussed that phone conversation, October 29th, 2012. Okay, so what she's done is she's got a cool moment here, which kind of puts us in the moment, in media res, we call it, which is like something is happening and we don't know what's happening, and now we start to get context. So there's something important happened. So I like the way that the tension is building here. Let me give you a sense of what I'm looking for as I'm reading this. Here are the 4 qualities, I think, of a great essay. I mentioned this one, core values, which is to say, what does this person really stand for? Insight, or what I call so what moments. I like to find, some element of vulnerability. Vulnerability. Is it personal? Craft. Is it told in a way that's succinct, that's logical, and if possible, beautiful? So far, it's well told. So something happened on October 12th, 29th, 2012. That day, I'd spent the entire school day researching the dangers of hurricanes and reading news from the Jersey Shore on the evacuation. I prepared evidence and notes because I knew that my Papa Dave would stubbornly stand by his only home, located in the dead center of Ortley Beach, despite all evacuation orders. When I finished reading him the cold facts, I told him I loved him and hoped he would make the right decision for himself and the family, and he said he'd think about it. Only a day later, we saw horrifying visuals of our quaint beach community on the news. Our favorite pizza place gone. My grandfather's house had tumbled across the island into the bay, and we'd still heard nothing from Papa Dave. Nana, who'd recently separated from Papa Dave, sat shaking beside every phone in our house. Finally, he picked up. We didn't ask what changed his mind because his signature, hello, was enough. Now, what I'm noticing by this point in the essay is that in terms of core values, we are 330 words into the essay, which is to say about halfway, and I don't really yet have a sense of who this person really is. What I get is that something really important happened to Papa Dave, and that Papa Dave, that there's an implication that that person meant a lot to the author. But right now I'm not really understanding just yet, I'm saying yet, what this person is going to bring to a college campus. Just FYI. Sitting in the Texas Roadhouse, watching my Papa Dave get serenaded into his 80th year, I realized that not everyone that day had been so lucky. Some didn't listen to their relatives and the incoming information and lost their lives. In that moment, I challenged myself to create a mobile application for storm evacuation procedures. Ding, ding, up level. Cool. Awesome. I'm going to just make a note. Awesome. So now we're getting a little more context about why this person is even discussing this. Because he or she, probably she, created an app, or they. I had no idea what the features would be, how the interface would look, or how the back end would work, but I saw a need and began planning. Nice. Great detail. Love this. Love this. First, my school community didn't understand the weight of the project. It was a distant and obscure issue to them. Yet after I explained my personal connection with my peers in the mobile development senior lab, they immediately offered their assistance, gave suggestions on helpful websites and APIs. They rallied behind me to provide evacuation maps, flood warnings, flood maps, and local weather news feeds, and a clean interface for those stubborn yet lovable individuals like my Papa Dave. Great! This is who it's for. Love it. This is who it's for. Okay. So my sense right now is that we're setting this up, this creation of this app. And I think it maybe just takes a little while to get there. Because like I said, I'm not sure I learn a ton about you, Maddie, in this first half. What do we do about that? Let's see. Let's see where the essay ends up. However, the cold data was only beginning. Good. Then came the cherry on top, the argumentation. Nice. My English teacher taught me how to intertwine logos and ethos techniques in language casual enough for my application. Cool. Persuading a stubborn user already begrudgingly exploring the app to turn 180 degrees and follow an evacuation order was a formidable task. I challenged my friends to adopt the mindset of this type of user, and their suggestions to remind users of their family and friends inspired me to emphasize the value of life in general. Cool. Thus, I implemented a similar technique to research-based strategies employed by suicide prevention hotlines. Wow, insight. I didn't expect you to say that. Cool. Now I see how your brain is working. Are you a problem solver? Task was the most exciting as I've spent every weekend since entering high school prepping and competing in public forum debate. Oh, cool. Okay. So cool connection. I like this. And it's also an insight into another part of your world. In the final focus speech of a debate round, I've always weighed the costs and benefits through quantifiable and ethical impacts, usually bringing up key statistics and quotes from the round. I broke down my words and formed a narrative like I was speaking to a parent judge. I get a little bit lost in here, so I'll just say relevance. I wonder if the relevance could be clarified. Could this be more clearly relevant? I want us to be able to get it on the first time we read it, because I'll tell you what, they're not going to read it twice, or they probably won't read it twice. The only difference I encountered was the importance of the end result. A failure in the application could be far more catastrophic than losing a trophy. Great. This is why it matters. A few months ago, I made an important call. Ooh, so what? What's been the impact? Where has it gone? What's happened with the app? Any downloads? Any user reviews? So you might include that. A few months ago, I made another important call to Papa Dave. This time I told him about my idea, the progress I made, and the features I hope to add. I'll be darned, he says. Okay, sweet. Nice ending. But here's my main critique, is that I feel like, Maddie, we could get quicker about, what set up this whole thing. Okay. Now, right now, this is a really great extracurricular essay. And what I mean by that is like, here's a cool project that you've done. Not just cool, really cool. Like this project feels like, above and beyond. How many students create an app? Not a ton, right? So it kind of puts you in rarefied air. Having said that, I feel like I'm not still learning a ton about your heart. I'm learning some, and I'm learning about, your desire to help others, in particular, the personal connection you had to this. But it could be that there's more variety. And how do you do this? Well, here's the exercise that I'd give you. So ask yourself these 3 questions. Ask yourself one. Actually, let me check out this list. And anybody can do this. This is a great way to test your essay. Check out this list. Let me just Google it really quick. Values exercise. Actually, I'll just show it to you. Check it out. 1, 2, 3. This is my values exercise. Here's this big old list of values that I mentioned. Okay, so now you've got a menu, and you can just Google values exercise, but I'll just Google values exercise, because you're not going to be able to click it here. And you're not going to be able to type all that in. Actually, so just Google values exercise college essay guy. You'll be able to find this, okay? So once you've got that menu in front of you, ask yourself, which values are coming through really clearly in my essay? Which values could be coming through more clearly? So maybe they're kind of there. And which values aren't there at all, but maybe should be? Now, let me just say that the values that are coming through really clearly when I read this essay, Maddie, are like somebody who, what's the word for this? Somebody who really sees a problem and does something about it. So I'll call that leadership, or ambition, or something like that. Whatever the willingness to. Another phrase I like to call is curiosity with legs. Okay, so I'll just list a couple of those, and you can continue to do this too, Maddie, and you guys can do this with your essay. So I'll call this leadership, or curiosity with legs. In other words, you're not just curious. You how could we do something about this? You actually do something about it. Which values could be coming through more clearly? Now, I'm just going to look and seek some possible themes, and I got to be careful here because I don't want to tell you how to write your essay. So, some of the things that I'm noticing, I'm curious about how this might impact a community. So if a community were to have a safer, basically, a sense that they could escape or more easily escape when a natural disaster strikes, how could that impact community? So I'm going to just write down, could there be something about your connection to community that could relate to this? And on a deeper level, why is community so important to you, right? Family is kind of there. It's kind of obvious, connection to family. What else could be there? Let me just see. And this is really more for you to do, but I'll just say what I kind of see, but it's not super clear. This is just sort of ideas. Let's see. Oh, you know what I'm seeing here? Another core value is good with tech. So that's good. I'm going to put this good with tech. Oh, you know what else is coming through is creativity. So in the way that you were able to do this, to use the research-based strategies employed by suicide prevention hotlines, creativity. And I want to say there's something else that I think that you could also, and I'm not going to tell you where it could go, but creativity, I'm going to call it creativity 2.0. Like, is there another moment where we could also see your creativity to the next level? And what does that mean? I don't know, but just kind of sort through it. And part of why I want you to cut the first part is I want to see if we can get sooner to the app that you created. It'll allow room for this. It's not super, super vulnerable yet. So again, I'm interested in why was this such a big deal to you? What's another value? What's a value that's not there at all? This is for you to decide. And what I mean by that is, like, based on the qualities, check out your, everything I want colleges to know about me list. Or, if you do end up doing the values exercise, Maddie, I want you to, check out or do the values exercise. And it could be, let's say, for example, one of your values is efficiency. One of your core values is efficiency or practicality. I'm not seeing efficiency or practicality there. Now, I'm not saying to you, Maddie, that you literally need to put efficiency and practicality and show those. I'm just saying that if those are your core values, could those be coming through? Because if so, that could help me show what your skills are, what your gifts are. So that's a simple 3-part exercise that basically anybody can use to improve their essay. Okay, we're over time, but I'll take a couple more questions. Julie asks, do you need to have a title for your essay? You totally do not. Let's see. On the essence objects exercise, am I aiming for items that are meaningful to me? Yes. Or just the ones that represent aspects of myself? Yes. Let's see. So both is the answer. Meki asks, is it bad to write an essay about something people might not agree with? So like any good question, it depends. And I would say if we're talking about politics or religion, for example, focus on, again, I'll show you the thing, the values that you feel like these, whatever the politics or the religion have helped you connect with. So for an example, let's say you wanted to write about an experience that you had at a Christian summer camp, and you were thinking about, like, wow, this really changed my life. I'd be curious to know what deeper needs were met. In other words, did you somehow connect with community in a deeper way? Did you find inspiration, the likes of which you'd never seen before? Did you, deepen your commitment to academics for some reason, and to just, making the best of your senior year? So what were the qualities that were, secular or universal that you've been able to connect with through whatever the controversial topic is? And of course, I don't know what the controversial topic is, so I'm just kind of giving some examples of those. Would living in poverty with a widowed mom be a bad topic? No, that would be a great topic. Last question. This is an interesting one. Do you recommend breaking up your personal statements into many small paragraphs rather than big paragraphs? I think so. Why? Because think of each paragraph as a scene in the movie. And I happen to believe that more scenes allows you to communicate more information and more twists and turns. I find it personally easier to read when there are paragraph breaks, because it gives me a little, and I like to breathe when I'm reading an essay. So I'd say, separate smaller paragraphs tend to be, I personally have a preference for that. If I have one huge block of an essay, one paragraph, I'm like, if it's two, it depends on how long it is too, right? So if it's a 350 word personal, essay, not personal statement, but let's say it's a supplement or it's 100 words, then I think, one paragraph is okay. Or if it's 350, 3 paragraphs is okay. Okay, one more question. Are there different guidelines for essays to Ivy League schools? Not for the main statement, Adele. The main statement is going to be the same, and you're going to submit that to all your schools. So that's what I mean by the 650 word personal statement. But each of the Ivy League schools will have their own supplemental essays, many of which I talk about in the course. Okay, we're over time. I want to be good to you guys and let you go. And I got to go take care of my baby. So have an awesome, awesome day, rest of your day or rest of your night, and be well.